What are the top 3 areas which you focus on if and when you become Prime Minister?
For obvious reasons of political longevity, I'm not going to answer that question. but I'm not going to answer that question phrased as it is, because that's ridiculous. But I think top 3 priorities of any Prime Minister. That's safe. Top 3 priorities for any Prime Minister. I think one, and this really is something very, very close to my heart, and close to every Malaysian's heart. And just to give you an example, we recently closed our applications for our Perdana Fellows program, the 3rd year for the Perdana Fellows program, which is basically where we get young, bright Malaysians to become interns for cabinet ministers. I see a Perdana Fellow there.
We hired one of them as well.
Oh, really? Oh,
Sam?
fantastic. Yeah. Okay. Sam's there as well, yeah. So, when they apply, they don't just have to give their CVs, but we also ask them to write an essay about the most pressing public policy issue in Malaysia. We don't tell them what, we just give them a blank canvas, you can choose whatever you want. And more than, I think, 3/4 of the applicants will write about education. So this is something very close to my heart, which is education. So number 1 priority is education. And how we continue to improve our education system. We have a wonderful blueprint that was launched last year, a higher education blueprint that was launched this year. The blueprint is fantastic, but Malaysia's biggest problem is great blueprint, but bad execution. So we have to make sure that the execution is good. And I have skin in the game for education. I put my eldest son in public school because I want him to tell me what's wrong with education.
It's fine.
And the other thing is, the best economic policy is a sound education system. If you want to have good economic policy, it's not so much how you run your fiscal, it's not whether or not you bring down your fiscal deficit, it's not really how you run a current account position, that's all important. But the underlying fundamental strength to an economy is an education system. So education is number 1. Secondly, I think it's about doing a little bit of crystal ball gazing. I think we've not done enough about future scenario planning. We have to do a lot more future scenario planning. Our present trajectory is based on 5-year economic plans. Government recently launched the 11th Malaysia Plan. That's for 5 years. But we don't know what's going to happen in 2030. We don't know what's going to happen in 2040. Nobody's really sat down. I know there's a small group doing it right now, but it hasn't been done on a broad scale, on a wide scale. People sitting down and see, what is our demographic profile in 2030, 2040? Have we got enough hospitals to deal with an aging population by the year 2040? Have we got enough in our pension system to deal with people who retire by 2040? Remember that Malaysia is still a fully pensioned government service. Singapore has moved away from that. If you retire from a civil servant in Singapore, they don't pay a pension until you die anymore. They just give you a gratuity and that's it, on your own. But in Malaysia, because we're still a quasi-welfare state, everybody who retires from government service given a pension until they pass away. This is going to mount up. We haven't counted the amount of our entitlement into the future. So future scenario planning is important. Third is sustainable energy. Sustainable energy. Where do we go from here? I mean, this is really about the future. I take 3 things which have long trajectories. Yeah? Sustainable energy. How do we continue to fuel our growth into the future? I say this because if Petronas doesn't keep on acquiring oil fields overseas, in 30, 40 years, our wells might be dry. So we will be dry of oil in 30, 40 years. If you don't find more reserves, if Petronas Carigali doesn't even find more oil reserves in our territorial waters, we'll be out of oil. Now we've been dependent on oil for a very long time. We've been dependent on oil to fuel us, and we've been dependent on our oil to give revenue to the government. About 30% of the government revenue comes from PITA, or from Petronas, petroleum income tax, dividends, royalties from Petronas. So where are we going to fund? Where is that energy coming from? Is it going to be nuclear? Is it going to be sustainable? We have to ask these some questions.